We have a shocking new report to discuss here on today's episode of the Rams Digest as we are talking about a potential top 5 pick falling in the laps of the Los Angeles Rams' hands all the way down at the pick 26 in this year's draft. We'll talk about all that and much more on today's episode of the Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Giron. Remember, if you guys are not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, press that subscribe button now as roughly 74.8% of you guys are watching the videos, but you're still not subscribed to the channel. So do me a favor, press that subscribe button so you don't miss any daily Rams content here at the Rams Digest. First things first, this story that's kind of interesting. I don't want to kind of overblow it here. I know how people feel about these kind of interesting reports, but overall, I do want to sit and discuss this possibility because after you kind of really take a look at it, it is potentially technically possible, although I think probably unlikely. We'll discuss all details here. As we are talking about Shedeur Sanders falling in the draft, Rams predicted to shockingly land their heir apparent to Matthew Stafford in Shedeur Sanders. Now, this is coming to us from Evan Massey. Now, I do want to say, of course, it's draft season. It's crazy talk. It's a lot of craziness going on. As many people always say, right, every single draft, this is not happening. This isn't possible. No way this guy falls. No way this guy gets taken over this guy. And yet, every single draft, something crazy happens. And so I'm not saying that this is likely possible, whatever you guys want to argue. Some people already are pissed off that we're even talking about this. But I want to simply emphasize this. You never know what happens in the draft. Just a few years ago, we saw guys like CeeDee Lamb fall in the draft. Justin Jefferson got picked at pick 24 in the draft. Now, I get it. You could talk about the pre-draft hype and all that good stuff. But the reality is, a lot of guys who wanted a quarterback are signing quarterbacks now, right? And as much as you want to say, the Browns or whatever, all these teams, if they take one other piece, Shedeur Sanders, a guy like Shedeur Sanders can really fall down draft boards because teams don't really necessarily need quarterbacks right now, right? Now, of course, everyone wants a quarterback. Everyone needs a quarterback, so don't get me wrong. He's going to be highly touted, but there is a slight chance that you can see him falling down the boards. We'll talk about that possibility right here. So, Kyle Stackpole of CBS Sports has predicted that scenario to happen in his new mock draft. Matthew Stafford is back in Los Angeles, but the Rams have to start planning for the future at the game's most important position. As a result, they end the slide for Shedeur Sanders and hope he develops into their next franchise, learning behind a likely future Hall of Famer. It would be shocking to see Sanders slide all the way to the number 26 pick. That scenario would be put a massive chip on Shedeur Sanders' shoulder, which could actually work in his favor. Landing with Los Angeles would give him a chance to learn the game from one of the most underrated quarterbacks in recent NFL history. Stafford would be an excellent mentor to him to work with him. And before we continue with the article here, I do want to kind of emphasize that. Yeah, of course, that's just hypothetically speaking. Shedeur Sanders falls to that slot. Rams take him. That'd be an actual ideal scenario. We talked about this with Jackson Dart as well a couple episodes ago, right? If he falls, I think it'd be ideal for him as well. You sit, you learn. Maybe he's not really ready to be a quarterback right now. Look at Patrick Mahomes. He actually sat on the bench for 1 year as well, redshirted behind Alex Smith in Kansas City again. So, you never know. That 1 year can really be really ideal for a quarterback. Learn the system, learn how to be a professional. Also feel like, oh shoot, I was drafted in the first round, yet I'm not starting. I have to work hard to earn this position. And so kind of that mentality going into it would obviously help, I think, a guy like Shedeur Sanders. I also want to emphasize this. This draft class for quarterbacks isn't really the strongest. A lot of people are saying, oh, Shedeur, top 5 pick, obviously. Well, he's the second best quarterback in the class. That doesn't necessarily mean, oh, automatically he's a top 5 pick. It just means he happens to be the second best quarterback. Is he this incredible, great quarterback that's blown everybody away with his talent and his production? I don't think that's necessarily the case. And I'm not trying to crap on Shedeur Sanders. If he falls in the Rams' laps, I'd be ecstatic. I'll go buy my Shedeur Sanders jersey immediately. But I'm trying to emphasize and kind of paint this picture for you guys. He is the second best quarterback in the draft. I agree with that. Is he this franchise quarterback, automatically shoe in, draft him, he's going to fix your franchise? I don't think that's the case. So will the Browns go out and take him, or they just take Abdul Carter or a defensive back? I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. His name right now, Travis Hunter. I don't know why I was blanking on his name, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? Like, I think ultimately the Browns might not take a quarterback. The Giants, yeah, maybe you want a future quarterback. Same situation the Rams find themselves in. You want to develop Shedeur Sanders, but ultimately they just signed 2 quarterbacks. They have Russell Wilson and they have Jameis Winston. You're going to have Shedeur be the third string. You're going to release Jameis Winston after you just signed him. Not saying that's impossible, but I'm just kind of trying to paint the picture here. Why are these teams kind of filling their role at quarterback, the Raiders, right, taking Geno Smith. Why are they all of a sudden filling these holes at quarterback, and are they not sold on Shedeur? That's kind of really the concern, I think, if you're Shedeur Sanders, or if for this scenario to happen, you would kind of have to assume that a lot of these teams are kind of out on him at quarterback. And they've made some moves to kind of look in that direction of maybe being out on a quarterback in this year's draft. The Raiders, I kind of don't see him falling past the Raiders, but if he does, who else is going to take a quarterback? And that's kind of why we're talking about this situation being even slightly possible. I get it, very unlikely, but still kind of possible, right? During the 2024 season for Colorado, Shedeur Sanders completed 74% of his pass attempts. Great, incredible. For 4,134 yards. I mean, incredible. Helped that two schools, right, two universities kind of transform their football program, Jackson State, and then leaving there to go to Colorado. That wasn't doing very good in the last 10, 20 years. All of a sudden being relevant and good, right, with him as well as Travis Hunter being on that team, led by, of course, Deion Sanders. 37 passing touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I mean, his numbers look great. I mean, don't get me wrong. The production is incredible. But, at the same time, losing some games, right, maybe not looking too comfortable, right, in terms of sitting in the pocket, things like that. There are some things to critique about his game. And so if teams just don't love him at quarterback, then maybe they don't want to spend that draft pick at the quarterback position. Plus, the drama that comes along with drafting Shedeur Sanders is real, right? You're going to be talked about a lot in terms of is this a mistake? Is this not a mistake when you're talking about taking him in the top 5 to 10 picks in the draft? No matter where he ends up, Buffalo's fans are going to be rooting for Sanders on just as hard as he was. On just as hard as if he was playing for Colorado. Seeing him succeed against all of the criticism would be an amazing story. Only time will tell, but this shocking prediction is one of the wild ones. However, crazier things have happened, and the Rams would likely love to add Sanders if the opportunity presented itself so late in the first round. I agree with all of that. Unlikely. We've seen crazier things happen in the draft. And so I think that's where we have to kind of pause and just relax. There is a real possibility that, hey, this could happen. Unlikely, but could happen. Just throwing it out there. That's all I wanted to say. Okay, you can freak out in the comments if you want. Moving on from that. Sorry we spent so much time on that. What are we talking about here? Actually, I'm so sorry. Before we get into the what are we talking about here, I don't want to freak out about that story yet. I do want to discuss this story here that I find very, very intriguing. Talking about the draft, the Rams have met with Huskers Thomas Fidone. The reason why this is important is, one, Fidone, you could say he's a sleeper, turning out to be a solid tight end class, look good catching the ball in drills Tuesday after the combine, blah, blah, whatever. He looks good. That's fine. The Rams met with him. That's interesting. The reason why this is even more interesting, though, is the Rams are now going from mock drafts taking a tight end to all of a sudden now looking at a tight end in day 3. Are they kind of exploring the possibility of, hey, we may not actually draft a tight end in the first, 3rd, 4th round, right? Maybe are we looking at more day 3 picks, 4th, 5th, 6th round, right? 7th round picks. Are we looking at that route for the tight end position? Are they just kind of doing their due diligence, or are they just kind of like, you know what, maybe we're out on some of the top tight ends in the first round. We don't feel like that's a smart move to make. We don't like the guys in the 3rd round range. Let's move on to the day 3 picks. Is that kind of where they're at? Very, very intriguing here. I just want to note that. Nothing really too crazy, but just a small note here. Day 3, they're meeting with a day 3 tight end in the draft class. And then moving on from that, I want to talk about this random story here. Should Les Snead get some slack if this draft goes poorly? Now, we don't have a full article to break down here. I just kind of wanted to explore this idea. Shout out to Sports Illustrated's, SB Nation's Danny Stone here, as he was discussing this on his random Ramsdom. Is that what they call it? Their little thing they do there on their website. Ultimately, a very interesting thing to talk about, right? Should Les Snead be given some slack? We always talk about this in the draft, right? You want the guys to succeed. You want the general manager to succeed. You want them to draft great players. But ultimately, he has done a great job the last couple of years. And so do you kind of say, you know what? I'm not saying you're going to assume it's a bad draft class. I'm not saying you're okay with it being a bad draft class. But do you see a bad draft class happen this year if it happens and say, you know what? It's okay. We still trust Les Snead, and Les Snead we trust. Look at who he's signed. Look at who he's drafted in the past. We can trust that he tried to make the best decision for the team, and it just didn't pan out for whatever reason with particular players. I think I lean on the side of giving him some slack, giving him some courtesy, and saying, hey, look, He's been doing a great job so far, obviously winning a Super Bowl a couple years ago and then now making the Rams a Super Bowl contender this season. I think I'll cut him all the slack in the world. Obviously, I'm going to hope for certain players to fall in the Rams' lap. I want the Rams to take specific players, but ultimately, I'm going to trust whatever Snead does. I think we can kind of give him that trust right now this offseason. Before we get into the trivia of the day, I do want to talk about this story real quick. What are we talking about here? If you guys haven't seen it yet, let's take a look at DraftKings betting odds for who's going to be the division winners this season. We are talking about AFC West. Looked at the betting odds. Kansas City Chiefs, normal. Expected. NFC North, Detroit Lions, okay. NFC West, the 49ers. Is that who I see over the Los Angeles Rams? What are we talking about here? The rest are pretty chalk, right? Buffalo Bills, sure. Philadelphia Eagles, sure. Baltimore Ravens, sure. Houston Texans, okay. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their division. Everything else is chalk. DraftKings has it. Everything else perfectly correct. And then they go to the NFC West, and you're going to pick a team that was 6-11 last year. 2 lost, I think, 6+ starters on both sides of the football. Not totally up starters on both sides of the football total. How are we picking that team and giving them the best odds to win the division over the Los Angeles Rams? Kind of a head scratcher, kind of doesn't make sense, very confusing. That's kind of where we're at with the betting odds on DraftKings. I don't know how much you guys want to take that. You can take it with a grain of salt, if you will. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Very interesting that DraftKings right now has the Rams as the second team in terms of betting odds to win the NFC West next season. Very, very intriguing. Last but not least, we are going to talk about the trivia of the day. My favorite part of the episode, where I pose a trivia question. You guys give your guesses down below in the comments. We discuss the answer, and then you guys see if you're right or wrong. Whether you're right or wrong, we give you a shout out on the next episode. If you guys missed last episode's trivia of the day, don't worry about it. We'll have one at the end of this episode. The last trivia of the day was this question here. Sorry, I almost gave the answers. Very interesting one. One of my favorite players in my personal fandom. What number did Panthers legend Luke Kuechly wear on his jersey? That was a question we posed as I try to move on to the trivia here. The question was, what number did Luke Kuechly wear? I kind of forgot about it for a second, remembered after a while. The multiple choice options were 51, 59, 54, or 57. That was the multiple choice guesses, and here were the people who guessed along last episode. Vasa, maybe Vasa Mikhail. I don't know. I'm mispronouncing his name. Vasa. I'm going to say Vasa or Vaca. Says, I think he was 59. Brian B says 51. Thomas says 59. And Floyd says 51. So 2 guesses for 51, 2 guesses for 59. What was the correct answer? Drum roll, please. The correct answer for Luke Kuechly. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure I'm right in my head. 59 was his actual number, which is very interesting. Kind of an ugly number if you just kind of look at it. It's unique nowadays, right, to see linebackers wearing number 11, wearing number 0, wearing all these interesting numbers now in terms of linebackers that they can wear. But ultimately, Luke Kuechly was back in the era where they were still wearing the 50s, the 52s, the 54s, the 55s. And so ultimately, 54, 55, that's like my dream ideal kind of linebacker number in my mind. 59, Luke Kuechly wore it proudly, and was a absolute legend in my opinion. One of the best linebackers I've ever seen personally with my own eyes play the game of football. That's it for last episode of Trivia of the Day. Here is today's Trivia of the Day. If you guys want to play along, go ahead and give your guesses down below in the comments, and we'll shout you on the next episode again, whether you're right or whether you're wrong. After helping develop Heisman Trophy winners Carson Palmer and Matt Leinart at USC, a very USC-specific question, Southern California, we should get this one, right? Norm Chow joined what NFL team as offensive coordinator in 2005? Again, after helping develop Heisman Trophy winners Carson Palmer and Matt Leinart at USC, Norm Chow joined what NFL team as offensive coordinator in 2005? Multiple choice options are as such. Was it A, the Detroit Lions? Was it B, the New England Patriots? Was it C, the Seattle Seahawks? Or was it D, the Tennessee Titans? Give your guesses down below in the comments. I'll give you a shout out on the next episode, whether you're right, or whether you're wrong. I don't know why I can't say that right now. I do want to say a little bonus trivia. Where does Norm Chow, where is he the head coach at right now? Where is he the head coach for? Is it college? Is it NFL? Probably not, right? Because you would have known that already. Is it in a different country. A little hit there. You guys let me know. Sorry, my dog's barking at people who be in the house. That's going to do it for me. A little extra bonus trivia. Let me know in the comments down below. Don't Google it. Try to give your guess down below, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. That's going to do it for me on today's episode of the Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Giron, and I am out.